Parliament Kimani Ichung'wah is in the house, as is Nyeri Town Member of Parliament Gunjiri Wambogo. Gentlemen, thanks so much for being a part of the show. And again, first time to see you guys this year. Happy New Year.
Did you say Kikuyu Town?
No, I said Kikuyu. Oh. Nyeri Town.
They don't have a town.
There's no town.
It's Kikuyu constituency, yes. Nyeri Town.
Yes, as opposed to Nyeri.
As opposed to Nyeri.
We have a town, but the constituency is Kikuyu constituency.
That's what makes him think he speaks on behalf of all the Kikuyus.
Okay, from Kikuyu constituency.
Yeah, a very cosmopolitan
Githurai town today. Githurai, Baba was there in a rally, and it was ugly. Come on, we're 19 months from the election, Mheshimiwa. What's happening? And apparently the people chanting were Tanga Tanga people, apparently, allegedly.
What are they chanting?
They're saying Ruto, Ruto.
Who said they were Tanga Tanga people? How did you know they were Tanga Tanga people?
They were saying Ruto, Ruto.
I was not there to begin with. I was on the other side of town, across town, in Kikuyu. But I've watched the clips and I've engaged with people who were in Githurai today. And if you watch the clips and even the photos that were taken before even Baba arrived, you will see hired mercenaries carrying some machetes, some rungus, jembe rungus, and they're not riot police. And when Baba arrived, Baba was able to speak to the people who were there. Our people are very civilized and honorable people. The people of Kiambu will never heckle you. They will never fight with you. But I am aware that there are people who ferried people from Madare. There are people who are ferried from Kibra, who accompanied Baba. Some who were ferried long before Baba arrived. They were being paid 1,000 shillings for every 4 people, 1,000 shillings at near Blue Springs on Thika Road. And it is these hired goons that caused the chaos that was there. Hired
goons by whom?
Of course, Baba's team. And I can tell you what happened. Heckling is when you're speaking and someone heckles you. What happened is that people chanted Ruto, Ruto, Ruto as Baba exited Githurai. And what happened is that the people of Githurai, being very civilized people, because they don't subscribe to what Baba was going to do and to sell to them, they opted to close shop. And they opted to take in losses today other than open and listen to things that are not palatable with them. As Baba spoke, those who were around listened to him and they watched him leave. But as he left, the people who were carrying the djembe sticks noticed a group that was guarding the wares that were there. Mind you, in the morning, people were forced to remove wheelbarrows and kokotenis. And these are their tools of trade. They were forced to remove them from along the road.
How do you know that? You went there. How do you know that?
I know because I have had time, Jeff. When you invited me here, I knew this would be a topic. And I took my time to speak to people in Githurai at the market, and they told me we were forced to remove our wheelbarrows and our kokotenis. So where they put them, and if you look at where the noise came from, as Baba left, are people who were standing and guarding their mikokotenis and wheelbarrows because it had their wares, the merchandise they sell.
Okay,
so the group that had been ferried attacked these people and told them, why are you not cheering Baba?
Okay, let's get another perspective. Depends on who you ask. Okay, Mheshimiwa, it depends on who you ask. Let's ask Nyeri Town Member Parliament Gunjiri Wambogo. What was your interpretation of those events?
Sad. Sad, very, very sad. Jeff, in 1992, we had very many candidates who were running for president in Mount Kenya. We never got here. In 2002, we had candidates, strong candidates, both Uhuru Kenyatta and Mwai Kibaki, who come from Mount Kenya, who are running for president. We never got here. In 2022, so far, we don't have a Mount Kenya candidate running for president. And we are just doing silly things like what happened in Githurai today. And it's very, very sad because Raila is not from Mount Kenya, neither is Ruto. So we are having situations where Raila comes into Mount Kenya and we have those skirmishes, Ruto comes into Mount Kenya and we have the kind of thing we saw in Kenol. And I keep asking myself, who bewitched us? How are we as Mount Kenya people fighting over people who don't even come from our region, who haven't even given us a manifesto of what they're going to do for our region? I haven't had Raila Odinga, for example, explaining to us that if he becomes president, this is what he's going to, these are the benefits that are going to come to Mount Kenya. This is what I'm going to do with the leadership of Mount Kenya. This is my deal for Mount Kenya. I haven't had Ruto do the same thing, right? But we are now mobilizing young people to fight each other on behalf of two candidates who don't even come from our region. It is very, very sad. It is retrogressive, in my opinion. I think the fact that we can have two groups of people who come from our region fighting each other for candidates who do not come from our region, who have not explained to our region what they're going to do for us. I've always said, for William Ruto, for example, to support the president in 2012, there was a conversation that allowed him to mobilize the Kalenjin community to go and say that we are going to support Uhuru because he has promised he's going to give me deputy president, he's going to give us opportunities in government. So he mobilized the Kalenjin behind him to support Uhuru. Now, today, I am listening to us people chanting Ruto, Ruto in Githurai. And I would like to ask the people who are chanting Ruto, Ruto in Githurai to tell me what it is that Ruto is going to offer the people of Githurai. Because I haven't had it. I've never had Ishungwa explain, for example, because he's always with Ruto and I know he's a very good friend of his. I would like to hear from him, what is it that Ruto has in store for the Mount Kenya region? And don't tell me to stop speaking like a tribalist or like a Kikuyu. Because the last time I saw the deputy president, for example, in Western, he told the Western leadership, mjipange, mkuje tuongee. Right? But in Mount Kenya, tunapangwa. Us, we have been pangwed by Raila's people, we have been pangwed by Ruto's people, we have been pangwed by Musalia's people. What is wrong with us? What kind of leadership, what are we exhibiting? How do we go to a function and fight amongst ourselves because of somebody who came and left? I don't understand.
Mheshimiwa, go on. I think we're testing your mic. Let's make sure.
Two things I would agree with my friend Ngunjiri here. One, it's very bad manners to fight over politics. We differ with Ngunjiri, but you never see us fight. And I would never encourage anybody to fight either Ngunjiri supporter or even to fight with him. However, you must ask yourself, how is it that there is fighting in Mount Kenya today? And who is the sponsor and where does this violence come from? I'll take you back to 3 incidents. The first incident being Kibra by-election last year. You know what happened. You know who are the sponsors and financiers of violence, the mercenaries, paid mercenaries who are used in Kibra. You remember, none other than the president seemed to condone that violence when he said, after all, if it's members of parliament being beaten up, they can afford to go to Nairobi hospital. Unfortunate as it was, fast forward to Keno last year. Keno last year, I can tell you without flinching an eyelid, Mheshimiwa Ngunjiri seated here, ferried people from Nyeri to Keno. And I have evidence.
No. Let me finish.
I'm sitting here, and that's not true. Why would I ferry people to Muranga to do what?
And I know the Friday preceding the Sunday we went to Keno.
To do
he
what?
had a meeting in his CDF office.
I have meetings in CDF all the time.
I tweeted, I posted it on Facebook.
You see,
and there's evidence.
Have you taken that evidence?
Let me finish.
The police?
Okay. Waste of time. And I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why. Keno, the sponsors, financiers, and organizers of violence in Keno are known to even the police. I have said it not less than twice or thrice on this show in December. I said it. I have said it on other shows in this station and elsewhere. I have said it publicly that it was sponsored violence. People who are known, the police know them. And to date, no action has been taken. Fast forward to December 15th in Msambweni, in the Coast Province. None other than Governor Joho was escorted by mercenaries, some armed in civilian. Let me finish. Stop getting jittery, my friend.
No.
Armed.
Just getting...
Not with machetes and rungus like you write today. With guns. Escorted by armed policemen. But the others were people in civilian clothes, mercenaries, armed.
Why did you call them mercenaries? I mean, probably bodyguards?
Because of the violence that they meted out on innocent voters in Msambweni.
All right, you've just
fast forward. You give him an opportunity to respond.
Correct, right.
He has the right of reply. He's seated right here. I'm not saying it from heaven or I'm just here.
Sure.
You have the opportunity to respond. Fast forward from Msambweni to today. I have told you. The member of parliament for Mathare, Anthony Loch, Kajuang, the member of parliament for Kibra, did ferry people. If you look at tweets, I actually retweeted a tweet posted by Dennis Itumbi last night, because people talk, people people relay information to people as soon as they get it.
Okay.
And therefore, Jeff,
allow me, Jeff.
If you're talking about people fighting, then you know who are tagged with violence and who are the sponsors of violence.
But at the same time, if you have documentary evidence, they should go to the police first. You can't accuse people on TV who can't defend themselves.
I'll tell you.
But first, let him defend himself.
Let me first explain something.
Yes.
First, let me explain something. I know what Ishungo is trying to do. What Ishungo is trying to do, they have this narrative that because, for example, how do you determine somebody is a mercenary? You know, how do you see somebody walking in the street and say that is a mercenary? How do you see people in Githurai, for example, and determine these are ferried people who have come to fight? And let me tell you something that I have noticed that Ishungo and his team are very good at. This ability to create a narrative. We just said he retweeted Dennis Itumbi. Dennis Itumbi is a guy who does propaganda for them. Then he retweets it and then claims that it is authentic because it is Itumbi who posted it. So he comes here and says that I ferried people to Murang'a from Nyeri. First and foremost, I wasn't even in Murang'a. I had absolutely no interest in attending the Murang'a event. Why would I ferry people? Why is he suggesting that the people of Nyeri are so foolish that I would put them in a bus and tell them to go and fight in Murang'a? For what? What is in my interest in Murang'a? Whether or not for example, if I had an interest in Murang'a, if I was running for governor or member of parliament, I might actually ask my supporters to go to Murang'a. Why would I send people to Murang'a? So sometimes it's not even a matter of defending yourself. It is exposing how absurd and ridiculous some of the comments they're making are. He has talked about mercenaries. He's talked about the president making a comment about Kibra. Kibra, the people who are mobilizing violence are politicians. So if they get hammered, we saw a picture of Khalwale holding rocks. What was he doing? Those are not voting ballots. He was holding rocks. Khalwale walks with him. So if Khalwale is holding rocks and wants to throw them at people and people throw them back at him, the president has every right to say you cannot go and instigate violence and expect you're going to walk away from it. Because let me tell you, I saw somebody write something very interesting today. If you ever go to a meeting and you see people holding placards, they have been mobilized. Jeff, nobody leaves their house with a placard. Nobody leaves their house carrying a manila paper written Ruto, Ruto, Ruto. Somebody did that placard and gave it to that person and paid him to hold it up. Now, more often than not, it is going to be a politician. So the reason why it is so dangerous, the kind of game we are playing, that the people, whether it is people who are brought in from Mathare or from Kibra or from wherever they're coming from, these are Kenyans. They're not mercenaries. The policemen are Kenyans. When you mobilize a group and then you give them a brand and you say these are mercenaries, what you're telling people is that the next time you see somebody like this in Kikuyu, beat him up. This is a mercenary. And that's what these guys are trying to do. They have been arguing this, they keep saying we don't want an us versus them narrative. Tunataka kuwa wa Kenya sisi zote. But every time they open their mouth, they will be turning one Kenyan against another one. They will be saying this Kenyan is not supposed to be here because who says that Oluoch cannot come with supporters from Mathare to come and see how people in Githurai operate? Why would you then assume that because he's come with them, they have come to fight?
Okay.
You know, it's a very dangerous narrative that they're building. That, for example, if I go to a function, for example, and I have 5 or 10 supporters, he's going to call them mercenaries. That's what he's telling us.
Because you came with them. Because
I came with them.
All right.
But you see, I am a political leader who has supporters. If I'm invited by, for example, by him to go and do a harambe, they're very good at doing harambes. If they invite me to Kikuyu, for example, to do a harambe, I'll not come by myself. I'll come with a couple of people to help me. You know, tunafanyanga ile kuongeza. So that when I stand there, I have some friends. They ongeza me. He'll call them mercenaries.
So Jeff, let me ask you. Let me ask.
Before you ask a question, let's refrain from referring to people who are not in this interview and accusing them. It's not fair. It's not right. If you're going to accuse anyone, do it out there on your own, but not here, if you don't mind. Let's stick to the topics.
I'll not mention names, I'll tell you. But even though here, I would still mention them. You asked whether we report to the police. Look, go to Kilimani police station from here. Check how many reports were made in Kilimani police station over the violence in Kibra, and whether it is politicians who are fighting. When Khalwale picked a stone to defend himself against people who were attacking him, then you now want to insinuate that he was the one fighting the people. How do we know? It's a different case scenario. You saw the cases with Didmas Barasa and Simbarati, and you remember the fun Kenyans made out of it. But that tells you how unfortunate things are, that we take violence as a very light matter. And that's why I took great exception then, and to this day I still take great exception to the statement by His Excellency the President that it is okay for violence to be there because it's being meted out on members of parliament
who are the ones who instigate the violence.
Whether you instigate, what should happen if I instigate violence as a member of parliament, I should be arrested. That is the kind of nation.
So let me ask you this, Mheshimiwa.
I should be arrested, but I was asking you. My colleague here is accusing us of calling people mercenaries. What are you doing in civilian clothes with guns? You are not a policeman. You are not a plainclothes policeman.
This is his position. I haven't had anybody else, by the way.
Can you give me a minute? I was quiet when you were speaking.
Please stop him.
Okay, you speak then.
You need to stop him.
I'll continue.
I think you need to stop him from using your platform and talking to millions of Kenyans and giving them things that are not substantiated. I cannot remember a single incident, and I was following Msabweni. Maybe he's going to tell us because he was on the ground, and he's a smart guy. If he had that kind of evidence, he would show us. You see this guy is a civilian. Can you see he's holding a gun? But you can't come here and start telling us that civilians are walking around with guns. I know civilian policemen who wear civilian.
So are you done? Can I continue?
Who carry guns. So he really needs to stop that narrative of trying to scare Kenyans. There are Kenyans who are walking around carrying guns, who are mercenaries. And
they could have been bodyguards as well. They could have been
his bodyguard wears civilian and carries a gun.
So am I to sit here and listen to Ngunjiri direct you on what I should say?
No, but you're not going to allow you.
Then allow me to say what I have to say. You have the right to rebuttal. If you feel I shouldn't be here, the door is over there. The door is wide open.
Speak.
And you don't need to invite me here, by the way. So I come here to say what I have to say. And I'll say it without any fear of contradiction, because I know what I'm speaking about. I was telling you Msambweni, Kibra, today in Githurai. If you're saying it is somebody coming with people to skuma him for the Harambe, like he says he came with people, he would come with people to skuma him in the Harambe, do you need to come with those rungus, jembe sticks, intimidating people, telling them you must all support BBI, toka kwa hiyo mkokoteni? Because that is exactly what happened in Kibra. People are being intimidated, and we have been told, this BBI, you will swallow it like quinine. By fire, by force, you will swallow it. And therefore, when you come with rungus and carry people from outside of Githurai, and I'm not saying nobody should come to Githurai, anybody is welcome to any part of the country. That is why I feel free to go and campaign in Kibra. But I expect to do that in a peaceful environment. I expect that when Baba visits Githurai, he will be accorded an opportunity to speak and sell his BBI and whatever he wants to sell to the people. They will listen to him. They actually honored him to close shop for 30 minutes. They said we would rather close shop than have these people who are being ferried to come and loot our wares. They put their wares together when they were ordered by policemen.
How do you know that? How do you know
that? It is evident. It is evident.
How is it evident?
Look at your own clips on TV.
To say that these people were ferried?
No, ferried, Ngujiri has just confirmed they ferried people.
I have actually just asked you.
He just said that if I come with my group of supporters,
these guys were in my town.
Let me call them a group of supporters. Okay. So these groups of supporters that came armed with the jembe rungus. I don't know what farms were coming to farm in.
Okay, let me ask
Number two, Jeff, before you cut me short. If you are coming to an area, please don't come with armed people. You are coming to Githurai, come address the people. I was in Dagoretti last weekend on Sunday. We never had any armed people with us, except armed, uniformed policemen.
You didn't have bodyguards with you?
Even our bodyguards
were in uniform.
Even our bodyguards, those of the few of us who still have bodyguards,
were in uniform.
You have one bodyguard who is armed. They never display their weapons. Never.
But they're not in uniform.
They are not in uniform. They're in nice suits. They never display their uniforms. So when I tell you in Msambweni, when I tell you Keno, and you're telling me to produce evidence, I would produce you evidence of the same people that disrupted the deputy president's function at Giakanja in his constituency.
That's not true.
The same characters who work with him.
That's not true.
Disrupting the church service at Keno. Again, an AIPCA church. In fact, we asked that time, What problem does Mujiri have with the AIPCA church? In fact, it's a bishop who asked. Because Gyakanja AIPCA church, he brought in people to...
That's not true.
Gunjiri is right here.
See, and Jeff, and this is what...
photographic evidence.
Let me tell you something.
If you want,
let me tell you something.
I can get that evidence from here. If you want to AIT and
it would be nice.
Faces,
it would be nice. Let me tell you something, Jeff. First and foremost, we were not in an AIPCA church in Gyakanja. We were in a school. We were in school. It was a church function.
Which church?
Let me explain to him. We were in a school.
Church function.
Listen, we were in a school in Gyakanja, which is actually a school I am supporting in terms of CDF, in terms of developing the school, and I had been invited. In fact, I actually contributed, me and my friends took 100,000 shillings to that Harambe, and a lot of the guys who came making noise were taking 10, 20, because it is a local establishment. Now, when they came to Gyakanja, for example, they had 11 members of parliament who are not from Nyeri, and everything every member of parliament did was stand up and say they were a bad person, but they left, right? There was a lot of heckling. I walked into that event and walked out, because the people from Nyeri are the ones who elected me, and they don't have a problem with me. The other day, these guys came to Nyeri town, again with the deputy president and close to 12 members of parliament from across the country. They shipped in to Nyeri town close to 2,000 people. These guys.
How do you know that?
Because those guys are not from Nyeri. You see, I'm from Nyeri. I walked into that event. I stood in an event over there.
In your own town?
In my own town. I listened to them speak. Then they drove out and left us there. And let me tell you how you know when people ship people in. Had the people from Nyeri, had the people who were in that event been from Nyeri, and there was there, the deputy president was there saying, you know, Mungu wako hapa, mnataka aongee, wanasema hapana. You know what usually happens in events, in political events like those, Jeff? I would have had a problem with the people I was standing within, right? But now these are guys who are strangers. They possibly don't even know how to go home from there. They came in matatus. Matatus were parked near MOW. Other matatus were parked somewhere in at the beginning of town. They walked them into town. Why? Because they have to create this euphoria of crowds.
Okay.
Now, let me explain to you why that is. And it's important for you to understand what is good for the goose is good for the gander. He's claiming that the crowd that Raila had in Githurai was shipped in from Mathare and Kibra. What is he trying to suggest? That Raila cannot have a group of people in Githurai who come out and listen to him. These guys, it's because that's what they do. With rumors. In Nyeri, when they come to Nyeri, when they go to Othaya, I tell you, they shipped in people from Othaya, they shipped in people from Muranga. These guys, they ship in people from Kikuyu. They drive around with them. That is what happens.
So everyone's shipping people.
So everybody's shipping in people.
So let me
the most dangerous thing, Jeff, the most dangerous thing is when you're shipping in people to go and cause chaos or to go and disrespect leaders from other places. That is what these guys are up to. But then they're trying to turn the narrative around, because you've had him insist that they were mercenaries, they were carrying guns. These guys are very good in propaganda. They're very good at exposing things. They have shown you pictures by now of guys walking around carrying pistols or carrying AK-47 in uniform.
Okay.
I haven't seen
photos are there.
Let me ask you this. Let me ask you general question.
Yes.
What does that say about you people as our leaders?
Let me tell you. And
this is let us down.
Can I just interject? If you allow
don't
me,
interject, because we're not going to go to some Bweni or 45. Let's move on. What does that tell us, Kenyans?
We have reached a point where we are not willing to speak to the people who are where we are finding them. And we are now being forced. I don't travel. I have never been to, I don't go to this guy's place and unless I'm invited by people from Kikuyu.
Why not?
Why am I going? To do what? I was elected in Nyeri town. I serve the people of Nyeri town. But if he calls me for Harambe, I will go to his Harambe. But I'm not going to go and do a political event in his place.
But you didn't answer my question. What does that say about you leaders?
Let me tell you.
This has now become a monologue here.
But I'm coming. I'm going to ask you the same question.
Let me tell you what this tells us. And that was my first statement, if you remember. I said in 1992, we had multiple presidential candidates in Mount Kenya. In 2002, we had multiple presidential candidates in Mount Kenya. In 2022, so far, we don't have a presidential candidate from Mount Kenya. However, now, guys like this are trying to get us to get to the point where we are fighting each other because of people who don't even come from our region.
You get to answer.
What is that for?
Go on.
If you'll allow me to.
He will allow you.
Without interjections.
I shall not speak again.
Interjections.
Unless you like.
Jeff, you know where I was laughing when my good friend Gunjiri, he was speaking. I remember the words of Mzee Mwai Kibaki, who once said that even propaganda requires a little intelligence. Gunjiri is seated here. He's forgotten only on December 16th, the day after Msambweni. We were here with him.
Yeah.
He was actually seated here. I was seated there.
Correct.
And he said that the day these guys came to my constituency in Nyeri, the people when the people refused me to speak, let me finish, my brother. When the people refused me to speak, I went back to the people. I have addressed the concerns that were there. And he was admitting that there were issues after the loss in Msambweni. And he said, you learn from your experiences. He told us when his people refused him to speak. No. Today, only a month after, the people have become 2,000 people ferried from, I don't know, Othians somewhere. Anyway, ask yourself, how would you even
Nyeri people
ferry,
know that.
How would you even ferry 2,000 people? We got to Nyeri at about 6:15 p.m. from Othaya. I don't know, by the time we arrived there were no people. We got into a hotel, people assembled. And it happens naturally when people want to listen to you. It also happens naturally, like it happened in Githurai today, when people don't want to listen to you, because our people are a civilized people, Jeff. They will not come to heckle or stone you unless you provoke them. Look at the clips and photographs when the former Prime Minister went to Kangemi last week. The same people with rungus were photographed accompanying the former Prime Minister.
What's your point?
You need to ask yourself, why would government allow Kimani Ichung'wah to move around within the city or without with a group of armed people, whether with rungus, whips, or anything? Trust me, if I tried that in Kikuyu, I think I'll be taken to ICC, not even any local police stations. But anyway,
you haven't answered my question.
It is all that kind of impunity and the breakdown of the rule of law. That is why I told you from the word go, it concerns me as a leader when I hear any leader condoning violence of whatever nature, be it a member of parliament like me, Ngunjiri, be it the President of the Republic of Kenya, and I called out the President after Kibra. I continue to do it today. Because we talk about BBI as a thing coming to unite Kenyans.
Yeah.
And I said after Kibra, if we do not leave the bad manners of our politics behind us, people will continue fighting.
And you know it's 19 months before the elections.
Exactly.
Look at the high octane level of the politics right now. What does that say about us?
But it also tells you the sort of things, Jeff, we say.
4 years.
Let me ask you, for instance, and the language you speak as leaders, there are certain things I would say that naturally would incite the public against me. For instance, if I went to his constituency and I said insulting things either about him or about his people, they will naturally react.
It has been done many times.
Therefore, when you expect, when somebody calls struggling Kenyans, enterprising Kenyans who are doing their trade in merchandise, whether be it on a wheelbarrow or mkokoteni, and you call them takataka, definitely the day you visit them, you would expect there are a few who will not be willing to listen to you because they could be afraid that you come and call them takataka again. Therefore, as leaders also, we must be cautious with what we say at whatever level. And I'm not saying this about any particular leader, all of us.
And yet we still continue to do that, Mheshimiwa.
We still continue to call Kenyans masteries. We still continue to call
hustlers,
Kenyans
takataka.
Hustlers.
And you see, let me tell you, and it's important that that word has now gotten into this conversation. We are having our conversation about hustlers and dynasties, and the people who introduced that conversation is Ichung'wah and their team, and they brought dynasties. I have had Ichung'wah, I have had Mwaura on TV speaking about dynasties.
Not me.
Now let me tell you, he's a member of your team, Koinange, you have a very nice car out here. Nice car. And people will assume you're a dynasty, so they're going to assume that the reason you work here is because of where you come from. You have people who work in, for example, in my town, in Nyeri town, we have people who own mkokotenis, and then they list them out to young people who don't have something to do, and those people go and earn with that mkokoteni, and then you pay the guy for the lease. Now the guy who owns that mkokoteni is what we are calling a dynasty. The guy who pushes the mkokoteni is what we are calling a hustler. These guys are in a symbiotic relationship for them to progress themselves. We have introduced a narrative that is so dangerous at a fundamental level, where we are telling people that the reason you're in trouble, it's what's called binary thinking. The reason you're not doing so well is because this guy is doing well. That's the narrative these guys have been pushing. And they go out there and tell people, we have to, lazima tutoe hawa Mabazenga, these people who believe that this country belongs to them. Now, I remember that narrative in 2007. At that time, there were some people who were saying we are going to chase Kibaki and send him back to Othaya. Nobody sent Kibaki to Othaya. But people who speak like him, who are near the neighborhood, were associated with him and chased out of where they were living. Now, we are here telling people that if you're a dynasty, you're a bad person. The other day, the president, when he was doing the interview on the Kikuyu vernacular stations, asked, so if you're a doctor and your son wants to become a doctor, is there a problem? Or is that a dynasty? If I become a religious leader, which I might become after I have finished serving the people of Nyeri Town, because my dad and my grandfather were religious leaders, is that a dynasty? If Ishungwa's daughter, one of the daughters, decides that she wants to become a member of parliament for Kikuyu, are we going to say she can't be because the father was a member of parliament? And this narrative that has been introduced and deliberately cultivated to show that the reason that you are in that position is because so and so is in that position. Certain families. The president made another very interesting statement in Western province the other day that, of course, Kimani and his team decided to misinterpret. He said, if you can stand in front of people and say that the reason this country is in this problem is because of such and such a family and such a family, what stops somebody else from standing in front of the same group of people and they say it and saying, you know, the Kikuyus and the Kalenjins have been president, so them they are already dynasties. So anybody else who wants to become a president cannot come from these two communities. Because what you're trying to do is you're trying to exclude a particular group of Kenyan. And that divide and rule structure that Tanga has perfected, where they come into a town and they automatically say, I want to speak to these people from the marketplace. I don't want to speak to the people who bring new things to the market. I don't want to talk to that person who comes from a prominent family in this town, because he is the reason you're in trouble. That is a very dangerous narrative that has been introduced by these guys.
Much more, the rhetoric or the narrative is getting toxic. You must admit.
As far as
the hustler nation narrative is not toxic, and it's not getting toxic. It is being intoxicated by those who are now redefining it. First of all, we have never spoken about hustlers versus dynasties. The versus is being introduced by those who believe in us versus them. I'll tell you, a few months ago, or probably about a year or two ago, they were defining and reading for us from the dictionary the definition of a hustler. And telling a hustler is a thief, is a prostitute, all manner of adjectives, as they were interpreting from the dictionary meaning. Today, nobody is reading for you the meaning, the dictionary meaning of a dynasty. And I'll read for you. A dynasty is a series of rulers of a country who all belong to the same family.
So which one's
it has nothing to do with a rich or somebody who has made it. Indeed, millions, if not probably hundreds of thousands of hustlers are very rich people. I was telling people in my local church last Sunday, I would not describe myself as a poor man, because the Lord has blessed me in many ways. Ngunjiri here is not a poor man. You're not a poor man. But I'm not a dynasty. I'm a hustler. And I am not poor. A hustler is not a poor man. A dynasty is not a rich man. A dynasty is that definition that is in the dictionary. So the people who are defining for us who are hustlers are, as per the dictionary, today want to redefine who a hustler is and who a dynasty is. The hustler nation narrative, let me just take you back to the hustler nation narrative that is being corrupted today. We said it is about, one, people who believe in God and believe in, people who have self-belief, people who believe in the dignity of work, people who are enterprising, people who know they are not entitled to anything. There are those who believe that they are entitled to both economic and political power on the basis of where they grew up. My daughter, the question you wanted to ask,
yes.
My daughter Mombi or Amoyo, or the other two, if any of them ever felt they're entitled to become the member of parliament for Kikuyu later in life, because their father...
Does that make them a dynasty?
Because their father was a member of parliament, then they got it wrong. And the same spirit, we are saying that every Kenyan, irrespective of where you are born, you have a right to enjoy any equal opportunities with those who are born in privileged families. And therefore, Jeff, the corruption of the hustler nation narrative to be a narrative of the rich versus the poor And I said it on Sunday. I said it on Sunday at Waithaka, in public, because I said things in broad daylight. I said in the very near future, you will see state-sponsored violence against people. Let me finish. If you have problems with it, just go to report. I have ways to substantiate what I say. I said it in broad daylight. There are clips. I am not denying it. I am repeating it here. That there will be incidences of state-sponsored violence targeted at people who own property, so that they justify the rich versus poor narrative. You have seen it today. I've seen it on social media. I don't know whether they are real photos. Let me just qualify that, because I've seen it on social media. I think in Langata or somewhere, people's cars being painted with some graffiti.
I saw that.
Yeah?
I don't know. Yeah.
And just what I was saying on Sunday. And why I was saying that is because where they plan these things, there are other hustlers, other people who believe in the hustler nation narrative.
So what you're saying is that's state-sponsored?
They leak this information.
I will allow you after the break. We're going to take a break.
Before we go to break, so that we don't allow this to
As we sit here, I told you, if you allowed me, I would show you photographs, photographic evidence here.
That is
right now that I'm getting from his constituents, of the kind of people I'm saying who disrupted the function in Gyakanja, the same characters.
I would love to see that.
Disrupting the function.
I'd love to see that, but
we can screen them here. And the
Jeff,
people of New York can tell you where
Jeff, as you take this break, let me tell you, it's interesting that he's willing to explain or argue that only the state can sponsor that kind of activity.
Good. Hold that thought. Let's take a break. We'll come back right on that thought. Why did you say that? That's allegations. Let's take a break. It's getting hot in here.
That I can substitute.
We're going to start with you when we come back. Back in a moment.
Why did you tell Rahina about what happened between us?
I thought she already knew.
Why? I don't want to marry you. Is marriage by force?
Go beyond with Kenya's fastest 4G network, Popote. Dial *544# to